Because I promise you that this word answers all of our questions, I want to take a few. I want to take one that's very culturally relevant just to prove that this word works for us here today, not just when the authors penned it. What's wrong with being friends with benefits? Does it really matter? I took a whole chapter to really talk about the fact that there's one thing in the context and usage of the word yada throughout the Old Testament, and I want to tell you something. It's used over 900 times in the Old Testament. That's a lot of yada. And in its context and usage, there is something very unique that theologians uncovered, and it's the fact that this, in the theological lexicon of the Old Testament, it says, oddly enough, implying access, the word implies access and nearness to the object being known, but it overrides the nearness and the access. Because the word suggests that knowing does not occur through the physical senses. It takes more than taste, touch, and vision to experience yada. In its fullest meaning, the word emphasizes the role that the heart plays as an organ of perception. In other words, yada is emotional. Now, I want to tell you what Natalie Portman says about her movie, No Strings Attached, in our culture today. She says, Emma wants a relationship without the relationship. She just wants the sex. It's unusual but funny. I love the romantic comedies, but I'm tired of seeing girls who want to get married all the time. Ugh, isn't that awful? And that's all they're interested in. I think there is a wider vision of how women can conduct their lives and what they want. Ashton Kutcher says in the movie, I think this movie does point out that we have to stop acting like casual sex isn't happening. That's true. He is right. We should stop acting like casual sex isn't happening. But then he goes on to say, let's be realistic about what a modern courting relationship is like. This dude does not know what realistic is, because if he understood the science of sex, he would understand how off course he is. Every time God has a plan, he puts within his creation protective mechanisms so that plan works best that way. And when we don't do things that way, it hurts. And I want to introduce you to the fact that Yada defines sex as an emotional experience. It takes heart. Let me introduce you to the human heart, if you will. It turns out that our brain, not that blood-pumping organ a foot below it, is the seat of our emotion. This, guys, is the place where romance is made. It's the place that stores memory and sense and smell and touch, sensation. Now, that doesn't sound too romantic, except if you put it in terms of, let's say, a splash of cologne on your guy's neck, and an iPod downloaded with some tunage for Friday night romance, and a bouquet of roses. Guys, are you taking notes? You see, in this center of the brain, we store all of those memories, and every time those memories are stored, there's a chemical reaction that occurs within the brain, within the deep limbic system of the brain specifically. And I want you to know that when sexual activity occurs, that's a very, very powerful chemical reaction. There are two very unique chemicals that wash across the brain when sexual activity occurs. One of them is dopamine. Dopamine makes you feel good. It creates a simultaneous sense of peace and pleasure. Anytime your body experiences pleasure, whether morally good or bad, the limbic system gets washed in dopamine. In essence, it's the craving chemical. It makes you want more. It creates addiction. This can be addiction to working out or to having sex with a spouse. It can also be an addiction to smoking or porn. Neurochemicals are value neutral, and they don't care whether it's marital sex or crystal meth that makes you feel good. They wash the brain receptors anytime the body feels pleasure. Dopamine attaches you to the source of pleasure, even if it's just a friend. You see, you can't be friends, just friends, with benefits. You will be attached. It's physiological, it's scientific. It's impossible to experience casual sex without someone having to pick up the broken pieces of your deep limbic system. Friends with benefits, oxymoronic. You will get hurt.